Hi there, it's Ian here, and you're watching Grumpy Opinions, the show where I'm going to tell you all about what I think of films, TV shows, games, and life in general. Let's get on with the show. His Dark Materials is the joint show by the BBC and HBO, all about Lyra and her alethiometer and her armoured bear, Sky Pirate Texan pal, and a bunch of crusty pikey types, and they're off to save a whole load of kidnapped kids. While you're at it, why not follow me on Twitter at Grumpy Opinions? But for now, let's get on with things. Episode 5, The Lost Boy, starts off with us finally meeting Will Parry. He's the son of Groom and the Explorer, from our world. And he's a good lad and he looks after his mum, and she seems to have suffered some kind of mental problem and isn't quite with it. So he goes home every single lunchtime and makes her omelettes and stuff. But they're being watched by Bad Church and his dude, and after Bad Church tries to pretend he's like an old pal of Grooman's, she gets confused and rushes off to meet Will at his boxing class, and that kind of embarrasses him in front of like some wee nuff, and he punches him. But the teacher's like, nah, go and check on your mum because we totally get it, because grown-ups in the show aren't all crazy and mental. But things get kind of weird and she starts freaking out and she pulls out a bunch of secret letters and Will sees, but he's a good lad, and even though she actually says later on he can have a look at them, he leaves them private because they're her letters, not for him. And that night she gets up and she sees like the bad spy hiding in his car. Oh. Meanwhile, back in Lyra's world, the Egyptian expedition is getting closer and closer to Bolivar, wherever it is. That's the place where all the bad guys are and where the kids are. And it's full of bads, and they reckon there's going to be a great big fight, and this gets confirmed when Father Coram meets up with his cute ex, Serafina, who's a witch, and she seems to still have more of a bit of a crush on him, and he obviously still has a bunch of feelings for her, and they're both still kind of broken up about their dead kid, and yeah, it's actually quite touching. And Lyra, on the other hand, she has a kind of a plan that came from the alethiometer that she's supposed to go and check out in an abandoned village. And the alethiometer says it's all haunted, but she goes kind of round the houses trying to convince everyone that she should go, and it goes on for a while, but eventually they kind of agree to let her go as long as she takes Yorick the bear with him. And when they get to the village, it's all shrouded in mist, and there's a vague eldritch horror, and because of all the laws of visual signposting in TV and films, Yorick realises that what she's looking for must be in the big creepy fish drying hut right at the end of town, because clearly he's watched some telly before. And inside, she finds Billy Costa lying in a green jumpsuit, and Pan realises that. So they ride back to the camp with him, and everyone's really shocked and horrified because what's happened? It's crazy. They can't understand it, and they're going to go in fighting, and Billy ends up dying, and Matt Costa and Tona are really sad. And that night, Lyra gets up some sleep while the Egyptians head off to start prep for the big push. But then they get attacked, and she gets kidnapped randomly, and she finds herself being taken to Bollinger. And she says that she's called Lizzie, and then they give her a green jumpsuit, and clearly she's going to have the same thing done to her that happened to Billy. Oh no. So what did I think? Well, this week was an unexpected change from the previous episode, especially having all that stuff with Will. Let's face it, that's the real world, and none of this stuff actually occurs in the books until the beginning of the second book, and where the main story is still slap bang in the middle of book 1. And I like the fact, he's got this nice house, and there's a mystery about what happened to his dad, and his mum's a bit damaged and broken. She's clearly got a mental illness of some kind. And, he's a pretty sound kid, and he's looking after her the whole time. And, you really get to like the person that he is, even though we've not actually really got to know him yet. And I really think that works. And it works well, because it was a good bit of the other book. And I'm glad that they're working it in now so that it's not getting lumped into the beginning of season 2 of the TV show and we're suddenly given a new character and told, right, you've got to like this character now because he takes up a lot of time. And I like that he was also kind of likeable, but also believably capable and self-dependent. It showed that he's the one who does the cooking, he's the one who does the tidying, he's the one who looks after his mum, he goes home and cares for her, and at the same time, it shows that he does boxing classes, but it's not like he's a super boxer or anything. He gets his ass handed to him as well, just by the other guy. So he's vulnerable, and it also shows he has issues with his temper. And I also liked that, the episode itself looked really nice. The vistas were really cool. And the spooky village was awesome. It was that total right amount of kind of Cthulhu, sort of Lovecraftian, sort of spooky, misty village kind of thing going on. And there was a lot of dread in that. And I really enjoyed that. I also really liked the Serafina and Coram reunion. Because, let's face it, this is a character of an ageless, eternal character who's in love with a mortal human character. That's totally like Lord of the Rings, Aragorn and Arwen, but in this time it's a world where it didn't really work out right because things happened. And I thought James Cosmo really sold it completely, and so did Ruta Gedmintas, and I hope that's pronouncing her name right because she was really good, and I really can't wait to see what she actually does in the next few episodes. And there were other things that were good. In fact, one bit I'm going to draw up here is a little moment from Lin-Manuel Miranda when he looked over his shoulder. After the whole thing when they found Billy Costa, he's trying to be nice and strong and like saying, Lyra, we should go and do something else. And then there's that one little moment where he looks away from her and, his face just cracks and you can see that he's genuinely horrified by what they're seeing, but he doesn't want to show that horror to Lyra. I mean, that was a great wee choice the actor made. But that leads me to the stuff I didn't like so much. And one of them was that this week felt kind of like filler. I mean, all the stuff that wasn't to do with Will Parry, I mean, that kind of just felt like going round and round the houses, especially with Lyra and her whole sort of, I need to go to a ghost village. I mean, and sure, you've got to make it believable that this little kid is going to convince a bunch of adults that they should let a wee lass who happens to have, like, the most priceless trinket that could win the entire war, like, go off on her own just to look for a ghost. I mean, that'd be like, if you had the Fellowship of the Ring and Frodo, like, just, was only like 12 and had the ring and said, oh, the ring's told me I need to go off by myself to, like, this scary orc village and look for a spirit. They'd all be like, nah, maybe not. But anyway, it also felt like they were treading and retreading over the same ground to get these scenes done while dropping little bits of exposition here and there. And it also kind of felt a bit crazy that Lyra and her lithiometer are just getting super powered now. I mean, she can just read it and she just understands everything now. It's like perfectly makes sense to her in a kind of weird wooey way.
Tartars. Company of Tartars, Lord Fargard station. They have fences all around it. 60 men with rifles and bigger guns.
And she can see things through it. And she said that. Well, why not show us that rather than just dump it in dialogue? And I've got to complain about the Billy Costa scene. Now, I'm sure in the book, in fact, I'm pretty sure I remember, it was actually a different kid. It wasn't Billy Costa. We found out what happened about Billy later on. But I kind of felt like this scene, once they'd done the build up, once she gets into the hut, they kind of fluffed it a bit. Because, right, and remember when I said in previous weeks that they need to make the demons really prevalent so you get used to seeing them all the time? This is exactly why. Scenes like this. I mean, the fact that she finds him and then he's just lying on the ground and looks like he's unconscious. But then she's standing like really concerned and she doesn't actually go and just check if he's okay. And then Pan stands there and starts saying,
Where's his demon? He's got no demon.
And it's really clumsy and clunky. And it's clumsy and clunky because we don't expect to see a demon because they've made a point in the show that you don't always see them because sometimes they're away. And they've not made the sense that in any way to explain that demons can maybe sense the presence of other demons in some way. In the book, it made more sense because I'm pretty sure in the book, the kid's holding like a dried dead fish that he's found in the fish hut and he's muttering about where's his demon, where's his demon. And that would have actually helped. But instead, he's just lying there saying nothing. And it made it all kind of clunky. And again, I don't really feel they sold the horror. And this is supposed to be an unthinkable, unimaginable situation that should totally unnerve Lyra completely. But she gets just kind of a little bit upset, and that's fair enough. I mean, her reaction's not the big problem. But then they get back, and the one thing that actually sells it in any way is the look from Lin-Manuel Miranda, that would glance over his shoulder. But at least the good thing is we're into the meat of this story now. I mean, now that she's been kidnapped and she's at Bollinger and stuff, and things certainly are going to actually happen in the story. And I'm just hoping the pace picks up a little bit because we're now into the exciting stuff. And we're more than halfway through the TV show. And I've kind of realised that I'm finding it all a little bit dull. I thought it was all going to be a bit snappier than this. And maybe my memory of the books is bad. And my memory of the film crammed all this into like under 2 hours. And we're now 5 hours in. Now, yeah, I just hope it manages to sort it out at the end. And I hope that the end has the payoff that I'm expecting. But yeah, till next time, I've been Ian, and these have been my grumpy opinions.